Good evening, students of EDU 1107. My name is John Cooper. I am a ESE teacher at our alternative school in Wakulla County. I teach 6th through 12th grade, and I have students in diverse backgrounds. Today's lesson is going to be on behavior and social learning. You can find our strategies to the right of me, our standards, and we also have our learning strategies in this bottom corner. Each learning strategy is going to take up a third to a quarter of the lecture I give today. So what I want you to do, since our topic is behavior and social learning, I want you to give a prediction, a quick write of what you think I'm going to talk about. So I want you to pause the video, take about 1 minute, and give the prediction of what this topic is going to be about. I hope you took the time to pause that as we are moving on to our second strategy. We have a 4-point list of an organizer here, and we're going to start off with Ivan Pavlov. Ivan Pavlov was a Russian scientist who was into and testing a dog's saliva, how much saliva they build up when they were fed. Well, instead of focusing just on the saliva, Pavlov went to the behavior and social learning aspect of the project. When he would put food down, he noticed at the side of the food, the dogs would already start creating saliva. Well, he started delaying that further and further. He noticed that the dog's saliva would start creating when they heard footsteps of the food being brought in. Then, it all started with a ring of a bell. When the dogs heard the bell ring, they would start salivating when the food was put down. Well, then they delay it even further and further. They start noticing the behavior of when the dogs hear the bell repetitiously, they start creating a tendency to start creating saliva. Then, they would just ring the bell, not bring food out at all, and the saliva would then be created. So, Pavlov found a behavior and social learning from the dogs to where if they heard the tendency of the bell, they would be expecting food, and that's when the saliva would start. I have a personal story with this. My father-in-law has a catfish pond behind his house. He put it in a couple years ago. When we first started going down there, the catfish wouldn't pop the water until the food was brought in. Well, months later, we would take the food down by a four-wheeler. Whenever the fish would hear the sound of the four-wheeler's engine, they would soon start popping the water, even without the food. So it was interesting to see that the catfish learned the behavior of, when I hear the four-wheeler's engine, it's time for the food. Just like the dogs with Pavlov, when they heard the bell, they knew it was time for food, and saliva would start creating. Now, this leads us to our second point, which is positive behavior. I told you that I teach at an alternative school in Wakulla County, so we have a group of diverse learners. They are placed here due to majority behaviors, so a lot of them are not willing to work when they first get in. It is up to the teacher to create the behavior to get them to work, and that is me. So positive behavior, I want to start with what I implement in my classroom. I want to be captivated to the students, and I want to give them incentives. Incentives can include brain breaks. The student knows that if they complete the work efficiently, they will get a list of brain breaks. That can include Google games on our computer, drawing, makeup work, board games, and one of their favorites, if you follow me this way, they love candy. A positive behavior is set when you have incentives to offer your students, especially if it's a diverse background of a classroom of students not willing to work. For the whole school, not just my classroom, we have a monetary value called Benjamins. A teacher can hand out a Benjamin to a student that is doing something right, anything right, and that helps create this positive behavior. So with Benjamins, they can earn weekly drawings for gift cards and snacks. This is a school implemented thing, school-wide. We are also having a 9 weeks party coming up, so that positive behavior is set from the positive incentives we give. This brings us to the third point. We want engagement in our classroom. With the positive behavior set, with the student knowing that they are going to get some kind of incentive to encourage them to do their assignments efficiently, this creates engagement in the classroom. Instead of having a student coming in that is not very motivated, falling asleep, saying, "What's the point? I'm in alternative school," there is a pick-me-up. Once they know there's a pick-me-up, that's where you get your engagement. And if you have engagement in your classroom, if you have that engagement learning of that behavior and social learning, you have a great classroom atmosphere. You are having students participate in your lesson. Not just trying to get by, but they are thriving in your lesson. They work harder for better rewards. They work in general for rewards, not only in the classroom, but they behave outside of the classroom throughout the school. They make students care to learn more, and behavior is a big part of the learning environment. So these incentives we've talked about, okay, creates that behavior. I don't want to compare it to the dog seeing the food or ringing the bell, and that's where salivating begins. I don't want to compare it to the catfish here in the four-wheeler engine. But when the student knows they have positive behavior, or positive positive behavior happens, which leads to that engagement in the classroom. Our last point is being innovative. Everybody wants to be an innovative teacher. And I got to admit, it is hard in the situation I have in my classroom, but it is not impossible. To me, when I'm asking questions, I know I can be innovative when my student who has been exposed to positive incentives, they're engaged when they start asking questions back at me. And not just any questions, but high quality questions back at me. This fourth step is where we all want to be at. So if we take it back from the top to review, we start with Pavlov. He created a behavior of stimulus of the dog getting used to something, and it creates that response. We get our students used to positive incentives, which creates that response of positive behavior, engagement, and innovative. Thank you so much for joining us in our classroom today. We have one last strategy. Exit slip. Just like you, I'm going to be on these discussion boards, and I want you to fill out an exit slip of how you think I did in the presentation, and if you learned anything. And I also want you to tie it into the prediction we did earlier in the class. So write a quick exit slip, and I'm looking forward to seeing your videos and responding on your videos on the forum as well. My name is John Cooper for the Wakulla County School District, signing off.